Over the course of the last century, our planet has become warmer, but in particular over the last 50 years. It is now recognized that human activities are largely responsible for this warming. In particular, the burning of fossil fuels has released huge quantities of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which trap additional heat in the lower atmosphere. The impact of this is being seen worldwide as glaciers melt, sea levels rise, and there are more desert areas. The African continent is particularly exposed and vulnerable to the negative effects of global warming. Therefore, the African Union and the European Union have started to work together in the three key research areas affected by climate change: water, agriculture, and health. The result of this decision was a call for project proposals, the FP7 Africa Call, out of which several collaborative research projects were funded to help people coping with climate change.
The climate change is impacting me as a farmer very hard, because I can't get green grass for my cattle, I can't get enough fruits to sell to the market, and we have a lot of problem with the drought. The climate is affecting people because they can't plant anything. So we just sit down and wait for rain to come.
Many of the available studies on climate predictions have not fully addressed the issues most relevant in Africa. Research projects funded by the EU bring together African and European experience and expertise. This collaboration supports the understanding of climate change in both continents, as well as looking at the shared challenges and possible solutions that may lie ahead.
Climate change in Africa is particularly important because for sure climate change is a global issue, and but Africa is among the various parts of the world the most vulnerable one. It's on one side the continent which has the lower emissions, but it is the continent where we can see the highest impacts. And this in turn generates other effects, social effects, and at the end it generates an enormous pressure to migration to Europe in particular, and to other countries, other parts of the world, but generates as well conflicts. And conflicts generate degradation, and degradation generate pressures again to neighboring countries. So you can understand that if there is a part of the world where we have to help people to tackle climate change, this is definitely Africa. We have a partnership with the African Union Commission. And through this partnership, we have started talks, and we have agreements that led some years ago to the decision from our side to promote a call on Africa. We intend to continue this activity, of course, in the future, and on focused issues where we see that Africa may benefit more, and definitely adaptation to climate change.
One example of FP7's ability to share knowledge and research is Climb Africa. This project brings together 18 institutions, 9 from Europe, 8 from Africa, and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the FAO.
Our project is aiming to provide climate predictions and models to assess the impacts of climate change on crop yields and water resources. What is really new with the Climb Africa is that we are able to predict climate in a short-term period, so in next 10 years or 20 years. We have a very strong collaboration with the African institutions, and this relation is important because we learn a lot about agricultural problems in Africa, and at the same time they learn how to use models and climate predictions. The possibility to assess the impacts on crop production, water, enable us to create hotspots of vulnerabilities, so to identify those areas in sub-Saharan Africa where the future climate change will affect more the people and the economy. We have a dream about the future, that our project is not just a one-shot experience, because we have created a real new African network of scientists. So we would like that they continue themselves with their own research infrastructure to continue to work with these projects.
The effect of climate change is felt in people's everyday lives in many different ways. Understanding these climatic changes, as well as predicting future patterns, is at the core of the work done by projects like Climb Africa.
Climb Africa and IGAD Climate and Application Center are working together on the ground, especially in collecting information on biophysical aspects, with Kenya as one of the case study sites among many other study sites in Africa. Today, we came to meet with the local community with the main aim of trying to know what they perceive to have been the changes in climate and what has affected and how it has affected them, and then what they have done to cope with those changes. One of the main challenges in Africa's changing climate is the development of appropriate adaptation strategies for the local communities. That is one of the key challenges, because you may develop strategies that are not applicable or that cannot be taken up by local communities. So unless you work with the local communities, you cannot develop suitable adaptation strategies.
I think the benefits for Climb Africa, for local people, is that this project will combine the continental projections using new models and new parameters with the local knowledge that we will gather from the different case studies distributed all around Africa, capturing different agroecosystems, climates and communities.
No kie ni kana no ke omana upoa me kalele yani kila tutona kwikala undu tutona kwikala nundu kundu kuone kumo kuyua nkana tetone kuka usomethia ni alimu ala mokie meno umani wa kutuonia undu tetona kwika nundu ona twaima tuikwata akindu.
Other projects are working on different levels and in varied ways to explore and share information, research and good practice. African Climate allows learning and experience in Africa to be shared with other professional stakeholders and everyone interested in climate change in Africa over the internet.
It is a web platform, an interactive, dynamic, multilingual, multi-sectorial information and knowledge sharing portal, which covers all Africa, 54 countries. It is available in 4 languages, and we cover all sectors, all climate-related sectors, such as agriculture, fishery, forestry, food and water supply.
African Climate is helping a lot because already we can document the tools that exist, but at the same time we have a portal in which scientists can share what needs to be done and what is being done already. ICRAF is one of the partners in African Climate. We have documented some of the approaches that we have learned. We have our old theme, or what we are calling now science domain, on climate change adaptation through agroforestry. And therefore we are glad to share what we have learned through African Climate. And when we put our projects in the portal and also learn from what other people are doing, then we find that our work is more integrated than what would have happened if we are just dealing with agroforestry alone.
In the website, we have provided some principles for good practice. About 8 principles for evaluating good practices in Africa. Those are case studies. So good practices is a very good example that can be transferred from one region to the other, that can capacity build, yeah, that are sustainable, and therefore can be copied beyond the existing ones for future use and purposes.
It is very important for African and European researchers to work hand in hand. We need to work together to link up, to bring together our expertise and skills to maximize the success of our work and to find the best solutions how to avoid catastrophic scenarios caused by climate change and to help African communities adapt to climate change.
Farmers have been noticing the various changes, that they cannot get good yields as before. Rains are not coming at the time that they used to come. Therefore, predicting is a problem for African farmers, and farmers are getting frustrated. They need solutions and tools that they can use to start to adapt, while at the same time mitigation is also important. So we are conducting research in adaptation, working with farmers to look at solutions that can work. We are also conducting research in mitigation, looking at how we can lower the carbon in the atmosphere by getting more carbon into the soil and more carbon that has been sequestered as forests and as woodlands in agricultural lands.
Now, this portal is extremely useful in my day-to-day activities, because if I want to know, areas where funds are available for climate-related research, I can go to the portal. If I want to know how other people have been doing indigenous knowledge or have been using indigenous knowledge on climate risk management, I go to the portal. If in any case I want to know aspects of policy and where best policies have been practiced, I go to the portal. So the portal provides me with, an amalgamation of information just by a single touch of a button. So this is my hope, that at the end of it all, we'll be able to have an encyclopedia where at least any information related to climate and climate risk management can be found.
Collaboration is at the heart of climate change research and development in these projects. Working together and sharing knowledge means developing more wide-reaching adaptation strategies.
Besides the scientific problem of climate impacts and predictions, it's really very important in Africa to build the governance of institutions and to make understanding that their future is very also related to climate change, so that the governments can think to develop adaptation plans.
We have to provide Africa to better internal capabilities of using the climate information for a better short and medium-term predictions, and for better organizing the adaptation to climate change, in particular in the most vulnerable areas. We have to be capable of giving forecasts that are valid also for 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year. We have to give the possibility and to transform this to services to the farmers, to every sector, economic sector, and the population, in order to help them to make good choices, to plant the right seeds in a given season, to harvest in the right moment, to prepare for difficult situations and difficult conditions that may happen.
Climate change is a global phenomenon which needs to be addressed at a global level. However, individual countries differ in both their contribution to the problem and in their vulnerability to its impacts. Therefore, it is urgent to act on those countries where poverty and inadequate infrastructures make more difficult the implementation of mitigation and adaptation measures and magnify the ecological, social, and economic impacts of climate change. It's therefore imperative that researchers and policymakers continue to jointly work at both pan-European and pan-African level to find suitable strategies.